Welcome to Cast and Crank Podcast. Today we have Eric Johnson.
Hello.
He is I guess SWB. Did you do SBS too?
A little, yeah.
Okay, so SWBA, SBS tournament guy. So word on the street, this is from other people, is he's the sandbass master. He kills it. So I'm super interested because I'm way into calico sandbass, and I've heard nothing but awesome things about Eric. So let's find out how this all started, bro. How did you start fishing?
So I don't know the exact timeline, but I know when I was in elementary school, we used to go camping up at Bishop. So we'd camp, and we camped right by the creek there in Bishop, and we'd fish. Didn't really know what we were doing. My dad kind of knew a little bit, but he wasn't really a fisherman. Mm-hmm. But he would kind of take us and show us, and we would do that every summer. And then as we got older, I started to get more interested in it. Would go to like Kmart was really the only game in town when I was younger. There was no Walmart. So I'd go to Kmart as a kid, and I'd just be fascinated by the fishing section. I'd be walking through and looking at stuff and just kind of wondering, hey, how do you use this, and what is this, and look at that cool color and stuff like that. And then middle school, we went on a road trip to Nebraska to visit my grandma. And on the way back, we stopped in Yellowstone and we fished a little bit, and I hooked a trout in the eye, and that was it for me. That's really what got me into
the trout
it.
in the eye, huh?
Trout in the eye, and then from there, my dad would take me on the weekends. He would drive me somewhere, and he'd fish with me till about noon. That's about as long as he could take it because he didn't like fishing. So he'd sit there and read the newspaper, and let me fish for about 5 hours or so.
And did you grow up down here?
I grew up in San Dimas.
San Dimas, okay, so close. Do you live around here right now?
I live in Rancho Cucamonga.
Okay, so not too far.
I'm about 50 miles to Long Beach.
Yeah, wow. So did you fish pudding stone a lot?
Yes, I did. So when I got my driver's license, I almost lived there. I'd go there after school almost every day. I think I fished 33 days in a row one time when I first got my driver's license that spring. I went literally every day after school for it may not have been there 33 days, but I used to keep track of it, and I was up to 30 something if I remember right.
So the big question is, what's your PB out of that lake?
9.5.
That's great. I suck at that lake, man.
Oh, that's a great lake to suck at. That's probably the second worst lake in the country. It's tough. If you can catch fish out of there,
you're good.
That's a good sign.
I would give you that. Silverwood, did you used to hit a lot? And
we did a few trips to Silverwood, but not too much. It was mostly when I first started fishing, I was really into trout fishing.
Okay.
So we'd follow the trout truck around. So they'd stock pudding stone on Tuesday usually, and we'd call, hey, did you guys stock the lake today? And you'd call the number, and barring weather, adverse weather, water, and road conditions, the following lakes will be stocked by the Department of Fish. I had that message memorized because we called it every week, and we'd go down the day they stocked trout, and you used to be able to fish in the launch ramp area. Mm-hmm. And we'd catch 30, 40 trout every time. And then, we might go the next day, and then we'd wait till they stocked it again.
Yeah.
Kind of repeat the process.
So you're how old when you were doing that? Maybe 15?
No, that was like when I got my driver's license.
Okay.
So 16.
Okay.
We, then
just straight trout at that time.
Trout, a little bit of bass.
Okay.
I wasn't really that great at bass. I did a little bit of bass fishing. But mostly trout, bluegill, some catfish.
Yeah.
No saltwater, I don't think at that time.
Okay. So did you, as you got a little older, were you man, bass is you started getting a little more into the bass?
For Christmas when I was a senior in high school, my parents had bought me a 12-foot aluminum boat.
Oh, nice.
So it didn't have a motor or anything. It just a 12-foot aluminum boat on a trailer. And we would take that. I saved up and bought a trolling motor and a battery, and we would go around pudding stone with that thing. And then I eventually got an outboard, a little Sears Game Fisher that broke down all the time. So I couldn't get too far away from wherever I launched from. But
what about Prado? Did you ever fish Prado?
Yeah, I did. One of my first fishing trips with that boat, I had one of those Fishing Buddy fish finders. I don't know if you remember those. You just clamp it onto the side of a boat. Mm-hmm. And we were taking that boat out to Prado. It was the week they stocked catfish, and we were just driving, and the thing was just going beep, 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 and the little fish were everywhere. And we caught so many catfish that day. You couldn't even fish two rods. You'd throw one out, and before you can get that second rod out, you had a fish on the first one, and it was me and my cousin. I don't even know how many we caught.
I love Prado, man.
Yeah, it used to be one of my favorite lakes to fish. The bass fishing was pretty good there.
Now they had that big kill off. They drained the lake.
I think they drained it. Yeah, I just read somewhere that they stocked it in October with some bass again. So maybe another year or two.
I used to fish it probably about 3 or 4 years ago. but I would disc golf. So I was a big disc golfer.
Oh,
I
yeah,
like doing
yeah,
that. So I'd go disc golf and then I'd go fish. And I remember I caught my first bed fish there. It was like 5-pounder.
Oh, nice.
And it was right in the toolies. Like it was, dude, I used to walk the backside and pitch like 80-pound braid like back in there and kill like 3 or 4-pounders just because it'd be so deep. And you'd think, man, I see a little hole. Maybe there's something in there, and then you'd flip into that thing and just get slammed.
Yeah.
I love that lake, man.
Yeah, it was a good lake.
I used to, and then I'd go to, was it Roscoe's right there at the end where you get off the freeway?
Remember.
There's like a great like bar, like place to eat, and I'd always stop at Roscoe's. But yeah, I love that lake, man.
Yeah, I ended up buying my first place I bought was a condo about 3 miles up the street from there.
Would you always fish there? When
I
you got
didn't, surprisingly, because that's when I was hardcore into the SWBA, and all I did was saltwater bass fish. So I didn't.
Really? Okay.
I would never take a day off to go freshwater fishing. So I was just focused on the saltwater at that, that time of my life.
So what triggered you? So you're what, 18, 17, still freshwater bass, still?
Yeah, I went on a couple. I went on a 3/4 day with my uncle who chartered it with his work when I was probably 16 or 17. And I caught like the jackpot sculpin. It was like a sculpin, so it wasn't a good day of fishing because it was sculpin that won the jackpot. But as a kid, I was like, "Whoa, this is pretty cool," and that's kind of but it was just so hard for me to get onto the ocean because it was 50, 60 miles from my house.
Yeah.
And when I got my driver's license, my parents had a rule that I couldn't go more than 10 miles from the house. I couldn't drive myself more than 10 miles from the house.
That
so
rule.
I had to stay. Yeah, it was a good rule.
Yeah. Are you going to enforce that same rule?
Yeah, if my kids get their driver's license, it sounds like kids these days.
Uber.
They don't, well, yeah, it sounds like none of the kids these days get their driver's license,
Yeah.
Most of the kids I know that are 16, 17, 18, when I ask them, oh, you drive? No, no, So I guess Uber's maybe taking the place of that.
My son's ready to take my truck, so he's like, when I get my license to get a truck, and I'm like, we'll see. Maybe.
Yeah,
I don't know if I trust you.
Yeah, it's I've seen a lot of car wrecks on the, I never saw car wrecks when I was younger, and now that I'm older and I go fishing at 3:00 in the morning, you see a lot of fatal car accidents on the freeway. So it's scary to think about your kids driving.
Yeah, right.
So,
how many kids you have?
I have 2, a 7 and a 5.
Oh, wow. How old are you right now?
38.
Okay, so you're saying I'm 38 too. I'll be 39 in July.
Nice.
So same thing. That's cool, man. So you got a little on the sport boats, and then what kind of triggered the whole saltwater bass, like calico, sandbass?
Well, my first boat was a 12-foot Valco, and we would take that when I was probably 18 or 19 maybe. We would start taking that to the break wall. Okay. So we'd go at night to the break wall.
It's a little could be sketchy, huh?
Yeah, in the evening, you go like once it starts to get dusk, it's pretty mellow,
Yeah.
But if you go at 3:00 in the afternoon, you're going to get your brain speed in. But yeah, it was I was never nervous. The scariest thing to me I think I ever had in that boat when I was that young was the fog rolled in one night. We were fishing and we would launch at Cabrillo, and we would fish the middle section, and the fog rolled in. This is before GPS or cell phone or anything. And so we were like, well, we'll just hug the wall back, and but you had to go through the Angel's Gate Gap.
Yeah.
And we were going through that, and it's just like you can hear the fog horns, and you're like, it's a pretty long section. When it was foggy, you couldn't see the other side. So we were just kind of, luckily we made it across, and we just kind of slowly kind of followed that wall. But that was one of the scariest.
That, for sure, that's a big gap, like with fog.
Yeah.
My boat broke down right there.
Oh, yeah.
I had a brand new low, and my injector went out, and I was like, fuck. And I'm going, and there was fog. I had the same thing kind of happen. And I'm like, shit, dude, we're in the middle of the, where the boats are coming out.
Yeah, and that's the thing, too. There's a lot of big boat traffic. There's tugboats, and I'm sure.
And they go fast.
And I'm sure the 12-foot little boat doesn't pick up on a radar from one of those boats.
Yes, exactly.
So, yeah, that was one of the scary incidences I had in that boat. But yeah, we would start there, and then we would go to Newport Harbor. We would used to hand launch. I didn't even know where the launch ramp was for like 3 or 4 years at Newport. I didn't even know they had a launch ramp. We just drove down around there and just looked for like beach houses kind of that had big gaps between them. And we would drag our boat down between the sand.
No way.
And drag the trolling motor and all that stuff. And then, we would, every once in a while, we'd get yelled at by some rich lady, like, what are you guys doing? It's 5:00 in the morning, So we eventually found the launch ramp. But
That's funny, dude.
And then from there, I just kind of moved up. So from that boat, I traded some guy for a 15-foot Gregor, which was significantly larger boat. And the problem with that boat was it leaked. So we'd go fish. We did a lot of halibut fishing in Long Beach Harbor. And, in the afternoon, it'd get rough there, and you'd be going, I had a bigger motor on it, so it'd go like 20. And you'd hit a wave, and water would squirt through some of the holes on that boat because it, had little cracks in it and stuff. So that kind of, that moved me a little further and further. And I'd start taking that boat like a mile or 2 miles out. And then when I was like 21, I think, I bought a Crestliner, like a 16-foot Crestliner, like a brand new one. My parents financed, and I paid them. Like they bought it, and I paid them. Yeah, I made
Where'd
the payment
you get it
from? Boat Depot in San Diego, I believe.
Okay.
So I just bought the boat. They had said they'd loan me the money. I had to pay them back $100 a month for however long it was going to take to pay it back.
I hear that.
And so
I had that happen with cars.
I just bought the boat, no motor. I took the motor from my old boat because it was a 25 horsepower and it worked pretty good. So I just put it on as a tiller, but the boat had a steering wheel, but it wasn't hooked up.
Okay.
So I used a tiller and it lasted about 6 months and that motor blew. And then,
so you just bought the hole, then you didn't?
Yeah, the hole in the trailer.
Okay.
And then like 6 months later, the motor blew and I was like having a hard time finding a used motor. So my parents were like, well, you can borrow the money again. So actually, I think they ended up buying that motor as like a college graduation. You better graduate college kind of gift for the. I still had to pay for the boat, but I think they bought the motor if I remember right.
What size motor did you get?
It was a 40 horsepower Suzuki.
4-stroke?
4-stroke, yeah.
Wow.
So I was in heaven at that time because I always had 2-strokes that
You're
were
like,
not
let's
reliable.
go to Diamond Valley.
Yeah, well, Diamond Valley wasn't even open at the time.
No way.
So
Wow.
It was like a year or two before Diamond Valley, I think, opened.
Oh, cool, man.
But we were able to go, we would take that boat to the Horseshoe and Huntington Flats and like out of Dana Point trying to catch yellowtail and stuff.
Yeah.
So we took that boat everywhere. I put a lot of miles on that boat. Then I traded that boat in for a Maycraft, which is probably the world's wettest boat, if you know anybody who has one of those.
I don't.
So it was a big boat, and I was like, oh, this is a bigger boat.
What size was that one?
It was a 19.
Okay.
And that boat was, man, it's just, even on the slightly windiest days, you'd get wet in that boat. It was crazy how wet that boat was. And then I just kind of kept moving boats.
Yeah.
But that's kind of when I had the Crestliner, and I think that's when the SWA kind of started. The second or third year I had that Crestliner.
So you're pretty original to the whole tournament saltwater.
Yeah.
bass.
So the first tournament I ever fished, I believe, was a wallbanger. So there was kind of like a Bloody Decks years ago that was called All Coast, and so it's an online forum, and they would every winter throw a breakwall tournament. So it was the only tournament I knew about in the saltwater, and we used to fish the breakwall, and we used to always catch fish there. We could probably go catch some fish there during a tournament. So we went out, and the first time we fished it, we did pretty good. We got like 5th place or something like that, fourth or 5th place, I can't remember. And the second year, we ended up winning it. And then the following year is when the SWA started, and that's kind of when I didn't really know how to do the calico fishing or the sandbass fishing really that well. I just had experience in the bays and the breakwall mostly.
Were you a big spotty fisherman at that time?
Not really. I did, but I wasn't great at it. I did it, but I really just fished the breakwall. That was like my favorite thing to do. Yeah. And then from there, I got more into the bay. That was probably the next thing I started to learn. And then I started to learn like calico fishing. There was I think Eric Bent threw a tournament in Dana Point. This was before the SWA.
Okay.
He had he used to him and I think James, I don't know if James even did it at the time.
Okay.
But he had a tournament just showed up with his pickup truck and everybody threw money in a hat, kind of, and
DIY, huh?
Yeah, it was pretty small time. And from there, that was like one of the first times I fished calico bass, and it was, I didn't have any experience, but I was like, oh, we probably catch a couple, so we showed up and fished it. And, I don't think we did that good, but we caught some fish.
Yeah.
And then from there, I think the next year's maybe when the SWA started. I think that was like the whole start of it all. And that's
you were there from the beginning then?
I fished every SWA tournament for the first probably 10 years.
Damn, dude.
So I was at every one. That was my life. That's what I did.
Were you married yet?
Not yet. So I was with the girl that I did marry at the time. So she's known I fished. She had to deal with it, I guess. But she's been good about it.
That's cool.
She doesn't hassle me too much about it.
A lot of pre-fishing, right?
Yeah. So that's that's what I would do every weekend. I'd be pre-fishing. And at the first part of it, nobody was really taking it that serious. There was maybe 20, 30 boats that showed up. Mm-hmm. And you'd go pre-fishing, you would hardly see anybody else. Maybe you'd see one or two other teams out there. It wasn't like it was, and then I'm trying to think. So that was the first year. We kind of learned it all. We did pretty good that year. I think we won, there was a tie for points, and we were like the original kind of angler of the year, but it wasn't angler of the year at that time. We tied with another.
Who was fishing with you then? Like dudes that still
partner?
fish now, or even guys that fished with you now? Like maybe so people can get a history of you.
My partner at that time was Darren.
Okay,
a guy named Darren. I fished with him for the first 3 years, I think, of the SWA, 2 or 3 years.
And are you fishing against guys that still fish the SWS?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I think there's a few. I had to think about it for a minute, but I think there's a few.
Because that's cool to know. Like people probably wouldn't know you're like kind of like one of the original tournament guys. So it'd be cool to be like, hey.
Yeah, I think like
know?
some of the big name guys like, like Matt Kopsef and,
Yeah.
Scott, they didn't show up for a few years. It took a few years. And there was this one year where like some sticks came in. It was like, whoa, where did all these guys come from? Like Jerry Mayhew. And there's just some great guys like that came out of nowhere, like, and it was like the first year we didn't know what we were doing. And we were able to get, like tied for first place in the points, we were kind of learning as we were going. And then the second or third year when these guys started showing up, you're like, whoa, it's hard to, it's hard to catch a check
joke,
now.
Right? Yeah.
And it just got harder and harder as time went on.
Yeah.
And then I fished for, I can't remember what year, I think 2016 maybe. I fished with a guy named Tom.
Okay.
For a couple of years. And I met him from a guy that used to fish the SLBA with somebody else. So he was a brother of that guy.
Okay.
So I used to fish with him for a few years. And then I just went with another guy named Patrick, who like Trout King. I don't know if you've seen the Trout King lures. He makes
definitely.
those.
Okay.
And then from there I went with Ricky. And that's who I kind of, the last guy I fished with.
That was your last guy you fished with. When was the last tournament you fished?
I'm gonna say maybe 2016, 15, 16. I fished one. I fished by myself. Wasn't even planning on fishing it. And there was a Long Beach tournament, and I just on a whim, I decided I'm gonna go fish, and I fished by myself.
SBS or SWBA?
It was SWBA.
Okay.
So it was in Long Beach. I think I got like third place or something like that.
Not bad, man.
But it was kind of on a whim. I just said, at that time I'd switched boats. So I had a Skeeter, a 24-foot Skeeter Bay boat, which turned out to be a disaster. It kind of delaminated on me throughout the...
No way.
Yeah.
I was like, man, that's an amazing boat.
Oh, man. It was an amazing boat. The thing was super fast, did 50-something miles an hour. It was a pretty dry boat. It was a good boat.
Yeah.
But I think just, the speed and just driving at 50 miles an hour in the ocean, it couldn't handle it. So it delaminated. And so then... the insurance ended up totaling the boat, and so I ended up using that money, and I bought a little whaler from some guys that fished the tournament.
What size?
17-foot outrage.
It's nice, huh?
So yeah, it's a great boat.
What does Bobby have?
I think he has an 18.
Dude, that's so dry.
That 17's so dry. That 17's one of the driest boats I've ever been in.
Man, I've been on a couple of boats, and I'm like, big boats, and I'm like, dude, Bobby's as dry as shit when I rode with him in his, it's a nice boat.
I have a 18-foot trophy walk around that's like looks like a much bigger boat than the whaler, and that boat rides. It's a lot wetter.
Really?
You get wet in that boat, even though it's got a big windshield on it. It sits higher out of the water.
Yeah.
But that little 17, I don't understand how they do it, but it's a dry boat.
Yeah, somehow, right?
So it's just not fast. That's the problem. It's not like the way I used to fish tournaments. I'm on it going 50 to my spot, fish it for 2 minutes, 50 miles an hour to the next spot. But with the new boat, it's like 25 next spot. So you can only fish like half the water I would normally fish, so it,
which we want to talk about how you fish tournaments and how they kind of change rules on you because the way you fish them. So when you were fishing, you got into sandbass. You're a big sandbass guy, right?
Yeah. So I can't remember the year. Long time ago, Mark Wish came out with a book called Between 2 and 20 Fathoms, and there was waypoints in it.
Okay.
So I bought that book and I started plugging some in, and we'd go out and we're like, oh, this is a pretty good spot. This is way better than fishing fishing the harbor. You catch fish, so you catch a lot of fish. They're bigger fish. You catch more fish.
Yeah.
And we started fishing those, and we'd start learning, and from there it just kind of kept evolving. There was 300 or 400 spots in that book, and I eventually fished them all, and then from there I kind of started saying, well, there's got to be other stuff out here. There's if he's got 300 or 400 spots I had no idea existed before that book, there's got to be 300 or 400 more spots that probably exist after that book. So that's kind of when I started devoting a lot of my time to looking for spots. So
just driving around.
Yeah. So when I went to college, I got a degree in a master's degree in applied math, and I took this modeling class where I learned a lot about how to do mathematical modeling. So I kind of try to apply some of those principles to I wrote a computer program that kind of broke down the ocean into like segments. So I have like spots called like grid. I could break it into a block, right? And then I would spend like 2 or 3 weekends driving around that little block looking. And then I would save my
wild. Man.
I would save my track lines. So you could save your track lines.
Yeah.
And I would export those into Garmin had this software called MapSource, so you could save your waypoints and track lines and stuff. So from there, I would just save them. I had this like big file of just like I would keep adding to it and adding to it. And eventually, I had so many, it would crash the program because your track line, like as you as you drive your track line, it like records your latitude and longitude. So it would, and that takes up memory in the computer. So I would load these like weeks and weeks and weeks worth of track lines into the software, and the software would just like crash on me, because it had so much. So I couldn't load them all at one time. But I took a very systematic approach to like breaking it down into pieces and just checking out those pieces and driving around and looking at those pieces and spending time focusing on those pieces. And so I kind of, I did a lot of stupid stuff. Like I tried to get like techie with it, like back in the day they had something called Dr. Depth, which was this software you could buy. And if you could get your track lines, because the track lines would export your depth and your latitude and longitude, it would create like a 3D image of the bottom spot. So I would
square that you hit, or that
even
day.
Just a specific spot. So I started with like just wrecks. I started with like I think the first one I did was what's the one in Santa Monica called? It's the one right in front of the pier. I can't even think of the name of it right now.
The break
Star
wall?
of Scotland, I think it's called.
Okay.
So when I got that software, I went out there and I took my map card and I put it in and I drove over that spot like 50 times back and forth. And then I got home and I plugged it into my computer and I put it in the software and I'm like, oh, that's what it looks like. That's pretty cool. And then from there, I figured out, well, you can take like, I went on eBay and bought like an old Palm Pilot, which were like a very outdated equipment at that time.
Yeah, dude.
And I bought that thing and I was able to hook it up to the NMEA, or I don't even know if that's the proper name of it, but there's like 4 or 5 wires you can hook it up to your fish finder, so you can actually like live feed that Palm Pilot thing as you drove. So you could kind of build the map kind of as you were driving, which was pretty cool, because then I went out to Isers and I'm driving around Isers just kind of like mapping out all the little rocks and stuff that are out there. So I did stupid stuff like that all the time. Like I would in the harbor, I used to always mark my waypoints. So I would mark my waypoints, and then from there you get a timestamp from your GPX, file would output a latitude, longitude, and a time at which you put the mark. Every time I caught a fish, I'd hit the waypoint button. So I was building a database of all these spots that I was catching fish off of, which were good for seeing like, this piling right here, I've got 9 waypoints on it. Maybe I need to make 3 casts instead of 1 cast, because I fish pretty fast in the bay. So I'll hit a piling and I move on. But those ones that start to build like, I've got 9 waypoints on this one little dock right here. Maybe I gotta make 4 casts or 5 casts instead of 1 cast. And then the purpose of the time was I had found this website that you could download like time-stamped like tide chart. So you could put a time chart in and it would give you you could set the time intervals to 5 minutes and what the tide was at that 5 minutes. And then I would like put my fish catch times next to those times. And then I was trying to like see if there was like a correlation between like the change of tide, like the rate at which tide changes, and when I'm catching fish. So just get kind of nerdy with it. I just was taking these things because I was like, this is kind of at the time I was like, taking those classes.
No, that's just fucking amazing.
Yeah. So
to me, I'm like, fucking, you're really breaking this shit down. Like,
yeah. So I think I took a different approach. Most guys, I think, were out there looking for the gumballs, and I was looking for the gumball machine. So I was trying to find these like 5-pound factories, these places that produced 5-pound fish, not looking for 5-pound fish. I was trying to find spots that, you can go there and time again catch 5-pounders.
And you want to be able to hit it at this time.
Yeah.
And know I'm going to hit it.
I couldn't figure anything out. The tide thing that I did with the spreadsheets and all that, it was kind of a waste of my time, but it gave me something to do in the afternoon. So during the weekends when I'm fishing, during the week, I'm playing around because I didn't have kids at this time. So I'd be on my computer, watching TV, kind of playing with stupid stuff like that.
Yeah.
And most of it never did any good for me, but, it just gave me something to do, and just kind of during the weekend I go fishing, and during the week I'd play around with how to catch more fish during the weekend.
But it's cool because it gives you something to think about. Like I would be like, oh man, you could drive around and go look for some shit, like out there. I wouldn't think of that. Like I have the waypoints and my GPS and I kind of see where some stuff is, but yeah, you could do some research and kind of figure it out from there.
Yeah, and we got to keep track of it too. That because I used to do that too, even before I got good at it. Like let's drive around and see what happens. And then you're like, the next week you're like, didn't I just drive by here? And you weren't sure. So that's why I started like breaking it into grids and then keeping track of that. So it wasn't like a waste of my time. So like the next weekend I was checking out different water and not the same water. And this is about the time that side scan sonar came out, or side imaging, I guess not side scan, but side imaging. So I had one of the first like hummingbird models of like a 998 or something, like the very first ones. And I was fascinated with that thing because it was just like, it was the biggest game changer I'd ever seen in fishing since I've been alive,
Yeah.
You went from just like very like minimalist up and down image of like what there's structure there, but what is the structure, to, oh, this looks like 4 individual boulders kind of clustered together, or these
Yeah.
are light poles.
Yeah.
These are, so it kind of gives you some more insight as to maybe why the fish are at that spot versus just, well, I know it's structure, because that's what it was prior to me getting side imaging. I didn't know necessarily what I was fishing.
Yeah. What kind of fish finder do you use now?
I still have that old Hummingbird. I just bought the new one that replaced it with the, I got it because it does like the bottom hardness mapping and it maps. It does pretty much what that software I paid for, because I think Hummingbird bought that company out.
Oh, really?
I think they're the ones
wow.
that bought, because that guy went out of business,
Uh-huh.
and I'd heard he had been bought out. And I think Hummingbird
that's
is the one
cool.
that bought him out, because a lot of the fish finders now do what I was trying to do with that old software back in
Yeah.
the day.
How does your fish finder look? Just like it has a measles with waypoints?
Wait, I think I have to break it up into sections because
Dude,
I have so many
crazy.
waypoints.
Really?
So I have like a Newport Harbor file. I have like a
No
Mission Bay
way.
file. I have San Diego Bay file. I have like Long Beach file.
So you take a card and put it in whatever card you're.
So
gonna
I
go.
use I like the Hummingbirds for fish finders.
Uh-huh.
And then I like the Lowrance for GPS, because they let you on one map card. You can have mini files, so you can load your file for that day or for
Okay.
that section. Whereas Hummingbird, I think you need individual, unless they've changed that you needed an individual map card. So if you wanted to go to Long Beach, you had to have a Long Beach map card. And I thought that was kind of a pain in the butt. So
Yeah,
I
right.
just went, I like the way the user interface is on the Lowrance better than the Hummingbird.
Definitely. So did this kind of change when you're looking for structure? It made you want to fish sandbass a little more, right? When
Yeah,
you're looking for this.
I would get more excited about finding a new spot, because
Okay.
to me that was, it was like a money printer. It's not it's
No,
not finding
definitely.
a $5 bill. You're finding something that's going to make $5. It's essentially it's. I thought it was way more valuable. I'd much rather find a spot than catch a fish on a given day, because I felt like I now had opportunity to catch X number of fish in the future. It was, so I would spend a lot of time from I think I got real serious about it in 2009.
Mm-hmm.
Is when I really started doing this. So I'd go and I would literally, because I had that first generation Hummingbird, which is old technology, and the screens on those were not viewable in daylight. Like when the sun came out, you couldn't see them. I'd launch at like midnight, and I'd go driving around in the dark, because it's calm and you don't get the distortion from the boat rocking, and then you could see your fish finder perfectly clear. So these spots that you might miss in the daytime because the sunlight's bleeding at your screen, or
Rough.
because the boat's maybe rocking, you're missing them during the day. I was doing this at like 2:00 in the morning, driving around out there because it's calm and it's dark and you can see your fish finder better. So I did that like 2009, 2010, 2011 is when I was really into doing that. And then I got to a point where I'm like, I got so many spots, I can't even fish these all. Like, I have like 13 or 1,400 spots just in
So
the
you
Long
just got
Beach area.
addicted to just finding
Yeah,
spots.
yeah. And I marked everything, and it's like, then it's like trying to like group and classify things like, well, this spot's a, hard bottom spot in 90 feet of water. And, this spot's, like a missed load from a rock barge. It looks like, boulders strewn together. This is just a natural, like, it's just kind of grouping those and kind of understanding, okay, so the fish are on this spot. So what other spots do I have like that I could hit that, are similar,
So you have like a database where you're going, let's do facial recognition almost.
Well,
And you're like,
I'm doing that in my mind. I don't
you know
have,
but you know what I'm saying?
yeah.
Like you're looking for this shape, and you want to hit those shapes if it's biting that
Essentially,
day.
yeah.
Wow,
So
that's
it became
interesting as shit, man.
Yeah, so I would have like the alpha spots. So I was like, so if I'm pre-fishing for a tournament, or if I'm in a tournament, I would have these spots that I would hit first, and those would be my indicator spots. So this spot bit, this is my number one spot in this zone or this type of structure. If that spot's biting, then I need to go check these other spots. If it's not, then I go to plan B, which is check this spot. If that spot's biting, I go to, so I would kind of just run those like, I kind of, and I would have routes. So I have routes in
And
my,
you have a plan every time you're doing it.
Yeah,
Would
and
you
I-
be like, okay, this is today's going to be low tide at 6 p.m. So I know
And
this is
the-
how I'm going to do it, and I'm going to look at my.
in
my-
the harbor, yes.
Yes,
Like when I'm fishing
okay.
bay bass, I do. In the open ocean, no. I don't pay attention to
Doesn't
tides
matter.
or any of that
Really?
stuff. I don't see a personal correlation. I don't know if
Okay.
there is, but I don't see one. In the
Harbor
harbor,
because of shallow water.
yeah, in the harbor, like a day of a tournament, I would take one of those like China markers, and I would on my deck of my boat, I would write the tides every half hour. So like it's
Wow.
1.5, 1.7, 1.9, and then I would fish areas based on my tide depths. So it's like I had certain areas. So any given tournament in the harbor, Newport Harbor, anyways. I didn't fish San Diego enough to put any of this together. But Newport Harbor, I'd fish from the mouth of the harbor to all the way to the back bay. Every tournament based on tide, I would just kind of follow the tide and fish, certain zones based on that tide.
Dude, amazing.
So yeah, I tried to take it a little. I probably went a little overboard. I'm not fishing for we weren't fishing for $100,000, but it was it was a hobby. It was something I did. And it was something that was fascinating to me. And
to you, it was serious.
Yeah,
so
I was passionate about it. It was something that I was into.
So you're fishing these for a long time, and then tell us kind of like how you would do your tournament, because they changed the rules on you. So tell us what you were doing that people said, hey, let's change the rules because this guy's fucking killing it. Let's.
Well, the rule change was the no boundaries. So there was there used to always be boundaries, and you'd have to fish like a 15-mile segment of the coast, and you had to fish in that region, and which was fine. We always no problem with that. And then they lifted it, and that first year we still always fished in the boundaries, and we still did pretty good. And then the next year I got the Sticher, which opened up the door because it was a big boat, and that boat just flew.
What size motor did it have?
A 250.
Oh,
so it did 50. It did 50 miles an hour, and it did it in all but the roughest. And even if it was rough, I still did it. I buried the bow of that boat a few times where I had the ice chest just floating around in there. But so that boat opened up some doors to me, and I kind of got the idea. Well, I catch the most fish in Long Beach. I just need to focus on Long Beach and get really good at Long Beach, and don't need to drive 120 miles to go down to San Diego, every weekend, when I could just figure out Long Beach really good. And then hopefully the weather's okay and I could drive my boat from San Diego up to Long Beach, which I did in one of the tournaments.
San Diego, how long did that take you?
I think it took about 2 hours. I can't remember. It was a long
time
ago.
So that gave you like about 6 hours of
Not
fishing?
even. No, that took 2 hours one way. Because it was, I think where we started, it was about 80 miles, the first spot we hit. And at the end of the day, we were 100 miles from San Diego.
How many dead fish did you have?
None.
No way.
Never. Yeah, I don't think I ever weighed a dead fish. That boat kept the fish alive. They probably died after we let them go, but they were still alive, when we weighed them in.
So that was the first time you said, okay, this is what I'm going to do?
No, that was I think when the rules started changing, because guys were pissed.
So then how many times were you doing this before guys got mad?
We had one really good season. I think it was 2010, where we went. The biggest SWA bag ever weighed for the longest time was 25 pounds. Like that was the record weight, was 25 pounds for 5 fish. And that season, the first tournament we could go to Long Beach we had 29. The second one we had 31, I think. And then the second one we had 24. So we averaged. So
you were close
about
to 27. The all-time.
Well, we averaged 27 pounds.
What is Florentino's mats and
that one? No, that was like 34. That's a beast of a record. Yeah. That's probably never going to fall. Yeah, I don't know what it was. That thing's a beast of a record. Yeah. Though. But we just had this consistent like 25
which is
poundish
a big
bag.
Fucking bag, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I went to one SBS and just watched the weigh-ins because I'm like interested, dorking out on it. So I'm like, I want to check it out, and I'm like, fuck, man, 20 pounds is like a good.
Well,
day.
20-pound bags for the first 5 years of the SW, 6 years would win any of them.
Yeah.
18 pounds would win a lot of them. And then. I don't know what changed. Guys just figured stuff out. I can think braid came in, like 40, 50-pound fluoro came in.
So you were fishing before braid?
Well, yeah, but...
Well, I mean, like SWBA was a...
I think I first started fishing braid in like 2007, probably, is when I started getting into it. But I don't know what were the factors that caused the bag weights to change. Like guys just figured it out, and now it takes 25 pounds to win almost every tournament, right? Or mid-20s, so it's... Something happened, guys just got better. Techniques got better. Technology got better. Guys are starting to say, oh, so-and-so won the tournament at this spot. Now everybody knows about that spot. And it's kind of like, like guys were still kind of, I think, new at figuring out the saltwater bass thing. It wasn't, there was guys that were coming in, these freshwater guys that came in that were very dominant freshwater fishermen. They were able to apply their techniques to saltwater, but
like Hobseth. And Scott, right?
Scott there's a few of them, Mayhew, and there's a group of them, and they were beasts, they were great anglers, and but I still think I don't know, maybe they did have a lot of experience, but I think even those guys were still kind of learning saltwater bass fishing. It was still kind of, they probably did it before. Maybe I'm out of line saying this, I don't know, but I think it was still kind of new to everybody. Guys were doing it, but it just, the technology and the game was changing. The weedless swim baits weren't around. Guys got into that. I think that was a big deal changer for the salt or the calico guys.
What year was that when that kind of started getting big?
The
weedless.
weedless?
Yeah.
I don't really know because I never got into it.
You never
I
got
never
into
got
it?
into that train.
Do you do it now? Do you fish
A little bit. I don't.
Not much.
It's not something I'm into. So
You still fish a lot?
yeah, I do.
Yeah.
I took a break from the kids. I had kids, and then that's kind of why I stopped.
Are you back into it a little?
I'm fishing about once a week now.
Really?
Maybe, yeah. So
Long Beach?
Long Beach. Santa Monica's been my thing.
Really?
So I've been really trying to hit Santa Monica. I've been kind of like I did Long Beach, where I was trying to learn Long Beach and just
You're
going
trying to
to Long
learn
Beach.
Santa Monica right
I'm
now.
really focusing on Santa Monica. So,
Yeah.
and I like the calico fishery there, so I can
Dude.
actually catch calicos there, and I catch some good ones, Whereas I can't catch them in PV I can catch them, but I'm never going to win a tournament in PV.
Yeah.
I don't plan to. I don't ever think I'm gonna. So
Are you going to start entering again?
I've thought about it. I don't, a kind of, a couple of reasons why I stopped. One was the kids.
let's know. Why did you stop?
So
I heard you were a big force in the tournament scene. So for someone to just stop is kind of weird.
Yeah.
So I mean, like I said, it's all hearsay for me. Like I just hear you're a really good fisherman. So of course I want to interview you. Know this,
So the main reason was my kids. I was, I had kids, and I didn't want to spend. I was fishing so much on the weekend. I was fishing 100 days a year probably when I was because I'm a teacher, so I have the summers off. So I'd fish, a couple days to 2 or 3, 4 days a week during the summer sometimes, and I'd fish both days on the weekends. A lot of times when I was taking the tournament serious. And I just didn't want to spend that kind of time away from my kids. I want to see them grow up and not miss things because I'm out fishing.
100%.
So that was like number one. And then number two is like, to be honest, it's kind of like, it made me forget why I liked fishing, like why I fell in love with fishing. And it's like, you'd go out and you'd find the spot and it'd be like loaded with fish. And you're like, all right, we can't fish it. We got to go. We got to save this for the tournament. And you go back to the tournament day and the fish weren't there. And you're like, oh man, how many fish could I have caught if and it's just like that type of thing. It just kind of sucks the fun out of it, And then I felt like guys were getting mad at me because of, like we were running to Long Beach and guys were like complaining about changing the rules. I felt like guys were getting pissed because
drama.
Yeah, it was a lot of drama with, no one said anything directly to me, but I know there was a lot of people like talking behind my back, like trying to get the rules to get changed because, it's not fair. You can run to the same spot. It wasn't an issue for a while. And then as soon as, I started winning tournaments, it seemed like, no, you can't do that anymore.
That was a generalized rule, SBS and SWBA.
Well, this was before SBS. SBS kind of started.
So when did SBS start? So I
don't know the exact year. I think
5 years
2013 or 12
Okay.
maybe. I don't think my kids were born at this time.
Okay.
Might have been like when my daughter was 1 or 2 maybe. Would have been the first year. So maybe 2012.
Okay.
And I don't think there was rules like that in the SBS. I don't really know. I only fished a few SBS tournaments. I didn't fish a ton of them, so I don't know all the rules. And I know they change. So, I know like some of their tournaments you can run to the islands if you wanted to.
Yeah.
And then, so you could fish wherever you wanted to, essentially. But I don't know. Like I know there was years where you could do that and years where you couldn't do that.
This year you can't run to the islands.
Yeah.
They have a lot of boundaries.
Yeah.
From what I've looked at the internet and talked to dudes, like.
Yeah.
But you'd probably kill it on Long Beach.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't. I changed the way I fished the last few years. I've gotten into more like I try to catch numbers now. So I got one of those little clickers, and I'll take the click. Like I just, I'll use 10-pound test and a spinning rod and a small bait, and I just go out and try to catch fish. I don't care how big they are.
You don't go heavy as as you would have.
No, because it's not really fun. You're not catching that many fish either.
See, this is where I kind of changed because I used to fish really light. So like I've talked to Eric Ben a lot, and he's kind of like that too, real light. So I'll go to Crystal Cove and fish light. But then I'll throw an A-rig or something like that. I've never thrown it, and I'll catch like a 5-pound sandbass.
Yeah.
And I'm like stoked as fuck,
Yeah.
So, and I'm running 40-pound,
Well, you're throwing an A-rig, you better be running 40 pounds because you're going to lose some money if you lose that thing.
So I already did, but.
Yeah, so when I'm fishing an A-rig, I'll fish heavy. But if I'm just fishing a little like 1-ounce swim bait, 4-inch swim bait, I'll fish 10, 12, 15
1
pounds.
ounce, you'll fish 12.
I've been fishing. I've got one of those spot lock trolling motors.
Yeah.
So you can set up on a spot and you can there's a lot of suspended fish that I was fishing through before because I didn't have one of those trolling motors. So I'd fish a spot and I'd drift it and I'd fish heavier heads to get down there quick. Because otherwise, if you don't get down there quick enough, by the time your bait hits the bottom, you're 50 feet from the rock pile or the structure.
I got those questions coming up for you, buddy.
So, so yeah, I would fish. Lately, I don't fish heavier than 1.5 would be if the current is just ripping.
Wow.
Because if you're sitting up on a spot with spot lock and you're not moving, and those fish are up in the column, you're going right through them. If you float like, a 1/2 ounce jerk shad or something like that through them, it's game on. You can catch a fish every cast. They're not necessarily big,
and that's
but
12-pound you're using leader.
When I'm doing something like that, 12. Sometimes I'll use 15.
That's still light.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I would fish nothing less than 40 during a tournament because I'm fishing in the rocks on the bottom. I'm in the thick of it, and you don't want to break a 7 or 8 pound fish off.
Yeah, that's what I lost a fish at Crystal Cove. I was fishing a 20-pound towards the beach, and that's where I fish a lot because I surf fish there, so I kind of know the beach really good. So, but yeah, I'm learning like, man, sometimes you gotta, go up, but sometimes it's like fun to like. If you have something on 15, it feels like you're a monster.
Yeah.
Like
I told one of my buddies, I figured out how to catch a 5-pound bass on every cast, and he's like, "What? Like he was excited to hear. It was all use 10-pound test and a spinning rod. If they feel like 5 pounds, they don't have to be 5 pounds, but they feel like it. So it's more fun. It's you go out and like the way you win a tournament. When I used to do the all across tournaments. Every time I get those guys on the boat, because they're usually like executive guys that they're not fishermen, but you're tasked with putting them on fish. I'd ask them every time, you guys want to win the tournament or you guys want to catch fish? Because it's 2 different fishing philosophies. And they'd always say, I want to win a tournament, and I'm like, all right, so we're going to be hitting a lot of spots. We're not going to be catching a lot of fish. I said, we're going to be running. We're going to be moving a lot. You're going to be winding up maybe an hour and a half into the tournament. After I'm like, start to tell they're getting mad because I'm moving the boat so much. I'm like, you guys want to just start catching fish? And they're like, no, we want to win, I'm like, all right, well, just trust me here. It could happen at any minute. It's like you pull into one of these spots and everybody in the boat can hook a 5-pounder. It could happen. If we change minds, it's not going to happen, but we might catch 50 fish,
Yeah.
So, it's different. You got to pick what's, if I don't catch a 5-pounder, I don't really care. If I catch 50, that's more fun to me than catching 1 5-pounder.
I back that.
But
now I'm kind of in this spot where it's only been a couple of years of like calico bass. So I'm like, I love catching a lot of them, but catching those big ones is so addicting.
It is. Yeah. So if you're going to do that, you got to fish bigger baits. You got to fish heavier line, So
that's why I want to get to these questions really quick. But so I got a couple questions that I wrote down because I'm a bass dork.
All right.
So, I usually go to Izers. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
How long do you spend on one spot? Like if I catch a fish, I'll spend fucking an hour there, hour and a half.
Too long.
Really?
Way too long. I back when I had the old boat where I didn't have a trolling motor on it or the trolling motor was not functioning.
Yeah.
I would do one drift, and if that spot did not look very promising on the fish finder or I did not catch anything, I was gone to the next spot. I mean, I just have too many spots. I can't spend time sitting on a spot that didn't produce or doesn't look like it's going to produce.
Yeah.
Now that I have the trolling motor with that spot lock, I'll spend a little more, but sometimes I won't even put that in the water. So I'll do a drift. If I catch a fish, then it goes down. If it doesn't go down, I move on. But if it goes down, I'll give it, it depends if I'm catching fish. If I go 5 or 10 minutes without catching a fish, I'm out of there. I don't have time for that.
So after you drift that, do you go back, set up in the same exact drift and then spot lock? Like that's one question I have is because I'll drift over it and it's like, when do I drop down? When do I spot lock? Kind of like how do you know like when to hit that perfect spot on those?
Depends on if I'm coming over with the trolling motor or the fish finder or with the outboard. I mean, so usually I won't put the trolling motor down unless I've been like maybe the last trip I wrecked them there, so I'm like, oh, I know there's fish there. I'm gonna come in with the trolling motor on this one. But if it's if I haven't fished, like I fished Long Beach yesterday actually, I didn't really fish for bass. I fished for yellowtail, but we hit a couple bass spots on the way home. I didn't put the trolling motor down because I was like, I don't know if there's gonna be fish here. So I did one drift, I looked at the fish finder, said, it doesn't really look that good, but let's drop down because we're here. We drifted, nothing, moved on to the next one. If I get bit, what I'll do is I'll put the trolling motor down. I'll come back over it, and with that trolling motor, do you have one of those trolling motors?
I do have a spot lock. Yeah.
So those trolling motors like to head the bow of the boat into the current or the wind. So you have to kind of understand that as you're coming up on the spot. So you want to try to position the boat so that the front of the boat, I kind of keep the back of the boat. I don't fish from the bow of my boat, so I fish in the stern of my boat because I stand back by the center console. So
yeah,
I'll come and I'll try to get the back of my boat hovering over the spot. So I know some guys like to use their side scan and try to set that spot like 50 feet out to the left or to the right or whatever. I actually sit on top of the spot unless the water's super clear, but usually the water's not so clear that I would be worried about that. So I'll come over the spot and then I'll try to get the bow of my boat just just above the rock pile. So then if it also depends on if there's current. If there's a lot of current, I'm going to probably want to get my boat a little further above the rock pile so that if you're fishing a lighter bait, it'll just kind of drift down through that stuff.
Yeah.
If there's not much current, I'll sit right on top of the spot.
Wow.
So it just depends.
And that was another question I had is, do you come up to the side or to the left, to the right, depending on the wind, the time of day? Because when you break down that spot, are you going to spook anything depending how deep it is? Like
most of the spots I fish, I don't feel are deep, or they're deep enough where they're not 20 feet of water. I feel like some of those spots have tugboats driving over them, and the Catalina Flyer goes over them. I don't think they're.
You think
all
once
scattering.
you get past like 40 feet,
I think you're good if the water's kind of dirty, which it is most of the time in Long Beach. It's pretty dirty, so I don't think it matters too much.
Okay.
Personally, I'd be more interested in on if I know the way that the spot orients, you kind of want to be up current of if there's like a ledge or something of on one side of that spot, the fish are probably going to be sitting on that side, and you kind of want to set your boat up according to that. Not so much like time of day.
Yeah.
More of like how the spot lays out probably than time of day. It's like the sun, if you're calico bass fishing, you probably don't want the sun casting a shadow up to where you're going to cast because they're up higher in the water column, but the sand bass are 40 feet down and the water's got 6 feet of visibility. I don't think it matters.
Great. So. And there's another question for you.
All right.
What is your favorite bait to use when you're dropping down deep? Because that's been my question. I barely learning how to fish deep structure. Usually I'm banging the wall, banging kelp, throwing jerk shads into the kelp, stuff like that. So now I'm trying to learn how to fish deep to catch big sand bass, stuff like that. I just love catching fish. What's your favorite bait to use when you're going real deep?
I don't know the name of it. It's
type of bait.
It's a swim bait. I think it might be a 22nd Street bait. I got it from Patrick, the guy I used to fish with. He had a mold for it. It's like a kind of like a freshwater swim bait. I think it's a fat stubby bait. It's got big profile, but it's not like a Viejos that's long and skinny. I would say avoid those baits when you're fishing vertically because the fish will taco those things. So as those things sink down,
like slugs, you wouldn't.
I'll fish a slug sometimes. Yeah. But the long swim baits, they tend to I feel like they get tacoed. So a fish will come up and then it's so long, if they the way they hit it, they might fold the tail into that hook, and then you're essentially hooking the plastic again inside the fish. But the bait I fish is kind of compact. It's probably only 5.5 inches long.
Fat.
But it's fat. Yeah. It's a thick. It gives a good profile. So it's a big bait. It moves a lot of water, but it's not a long bait. So it's and I don't really see anything.
Your go-to bait.
It's what I usually fish. And I don't see
lead head?
on a heavier lead head 2 to 3 ounces.
Wow. War baits or.
I make them. It's like a gumdrop shaped head. Yeah, it's just
You're one of those guys. You make a lot of stuff, your own stuff.
Yeah, I try to.
Yeah.
Now that I got kids and I get a little worried about the cancer stuff. So hopefully, I tell my buddy, I went fishing with my buddy the other day. He was like, "Oh man, I keep using all your baits." I said, "Don't worry, they're free." Well, except maybe they're costing me my life, but they don't cost me any money because I don't even use fancy. I just melt down the plastic. So I got brown meltdown, green meltdown, and purple meltdown. It's you throw the.
You're not a big color guy then.
No, not at all. Yeah, I think it matters with the calico fishing if the water's kind of clear, but in 50 feet of water, 60, 70 feet of water, and if it's kind of dirty, I don't think those fish could see anything down there. I think it's just movement and if they feel it and there's a profile. I don't think that color matters.
Yeah.
At least not for sand bass.
What's your PB sand bass?
Probably 8.5. I've never really. Yeah, nothing too big. I've gotten a lot of 8-pound fish. Same thing. Calico's biggest, 8.5. I've never caught a 10-pound fish. I don't catch. Even there in the tournaments, we do very well with 4 to 6 pound fish. That's what we weigh 4 to 6 pound fish.
Yeah.
No, we weren't really getting.
And your biggest bag was 30.
It was right around 31. It might have been a little under, a little over. I can't remember. And now that the SWBA doesn't have a website anymore, you used to be able to find all that information on there. I don't really know. I don't remember. It's been so long.
Yeah.
But it was in the high 30s, low 31s.
Yeah.
So
what kind of rod are you using in reel when you're dropping deep?
I use a Terramar 70. It's the old one, the brown ones. I think they don't make them anymore. The 76 XH. And then I fish. At the time when I was fishing tournaments, I'd fish a Corrado 300. But I've been using Tranks 400s now. Those reels are beasts. So
Do you think they hold up pretty well in the salt?
Oh, they're amazing. Like I've got a Corrado that I just opened like 2 months ago. It thing's already seized up on me, and I have tranks that I've been using for the last 6 months, and they still work perfect.
Really?
So I'm just buying tranks in the future.
Yeah.
Because they seem to hold up to the saltwater.
And when you're dropping down deep, what size line like leader are you using?
I use 65 pound like braid, and then usually 40 pound fluoro or mono.
Okay. That's usually your go-to.
That's if I'm fishing a tournament. If I'm not fishing a tournament, then it's
yeah,
completely
like say
different.
fun fishing too for guys.
For fun fishing, I'll fish like a flipping rod, like a freshwater bass flipping rod.
Going deep too on structure.
Yep, and I'll fish like a 200 size reel, with like maybe 30 or 40 pound braid, and then like 20 at the max.
No
Anywhere
way.
from 12 to 20.
That's cool.
So it just makes it a lot more fun. You know, I break fish off, but it's not like, you know, if I break it off, I break it off. You know, it's not
unless
like,
it's that one, huh?
I guess, yeah. I mean, but you know, for the possibility of that one, you miss out on the fun of, you know, hundreds of other fish.
Which has maybe changed your mindset, right? From tournament fishing, it's like you're kind of like, do you take your kids out with you?
I wish. They don't like it.
Really?
So I try to get my I try to get them to go. They don't like it. Yeah. My son, we went to Mountain Lakes. We have like a RV and we go camping up there. And so it's like a little private lake, and they stock catfish like during the summer every week. So I took him up there one time, and we were just whacking the catfish, and I'd let him reel them all in. And I'm like, "Oh, reel this one in." He's like, "I don't really want to reel it in." And all the people around were laughing. They're like, "That kid doesn't even want to reel the fish in." You know, they thought it was so funny. I was like embarrassed. I had to put my head down.
Your heart just broke in half.
So, but I tell him he's coming. I'm getting a new motor on my trophy. So I said, when I get that new motor, you're coming with me. I said, because you know, you're coming with me.
So you have 2 boats right now.
Yeah. So the whaler, I don't really feel safe bringing my kids on because it's so small. It'd be easy for one of them to fall out. But the trophy, you know, it's a lot deeper.
How big's the trophy?
It's 18. It's just 18 feet, but it's a lot like higher out of the water.
Do you do a lot of lake fishing still too?
I do a little bit.
Really?
Not too much. I go with my buddy Darren on his boat to Pudding Stone like once a week during the summer.
You're still in Pudding Stone?
A little bit, yeah. Not from. We fished it Tuesday. We both got one.
Really?
Wasn't much to write home
about. There's a tournament coming up, dude. You should enter it.
At Pudding Stone?
Yeah.
Oh, no. I don't know Pudding Stone well enough. I'll be giving my money away at that thing.
It's. I think it's either free or something like cheap or.
Really?
It's I think it's Heavy Set Crew. It's called. And yeah, there's like all kinds of sponsors and they're giving stuff away.
Cool.
I think I'm gonna go cruise and just try to fish.
Yeah.
Mess around with the kids.
Nice.
I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
you're
a tough
local.
tournament.
Yeah, that's a tough lake.
It is a very tough lake. So. I can't imagine fishing a tournament at that lake. That'd be a stressful tournament.
Yeah.
So it's an hour to away, and we've only got one fish, or we don't got any. You know, it's like, you know, that's a brutal one.
Yeah.
So,
well, dude, thanks for coming on. Really
no
appreciate it. Hopefully you enter some tournaments soon, man. You need to get back out there.
That's what I'm telling my son. One of these days he gets bigger. Hopefully he'll get into it. Maybe I'll fish a couple if he gets. Maybe I'll fish the family division of the SBS or something. I saw that and I was like, I wonder if one of my kids would do that with me, but. As of right now, I don't think it's a go. So maybe
you can fish a family and kill it. I'm sure.
Yeah, maybe we'll see.
Just bring him there and say, "Here's your iPad, dude. Just we're gonna fish it."
Go sleep in the. Yeah, I got a little bed on the trophy, so I was like, just go down and sleep in the bed area.
And Dad will kill it over here on
those bags are catching ice. I was looking at the weights they're weighing in, and I was like, they're pretty good. Like the family division is still pretty competitive. You know, it's not like you can just go out there and.
There's a guy, 2 guys, father son, with a little like a champion looking bass boat with 15 foot like. A freshwater bass boat, and they won. I think the last one or the one before.
Nice
wall.
Yeah.
It was just all the wall, so they killed it.
All the bags I've seen them weighing in, I'm like, I don't think I could be
20s, 19s.
Like, I can't go out there and just win it. They're pretty good. I mean, the competition's gotten a lot better. I mean, they're good. There's a lot of good guys. The information is so available. You know, you can get articles from Pacifico Sport Fishing. There's YouTube videos. You know, the Bloody Decks doesn't seem like there's as much information. There used to be there is a bass forum, but it's not as lively as it once was.
Exactly.
I think everybody went to like social media or something. But
do you post pictures on social media at all?
I don't have a social media account, so I'm out of the loop. I have no idea what people are doing or what's going on.
That's kind of cool.
So
right.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, it'd be nice, I guess, if I knew where people were catching fish, but...
you don't. They block it out anyway.
Do they?
So, yeah.
So I got a buddy who'll send me a picture. Hey, I saw this guy on Instagram got this, he'll be telling me stuff like that, but I'm like, I don't even know how to look at it because I don't have an Instagram account. So, he has to send me a screenshot. So,
well, thanks again, bro. I appreciate it.
No problem.
Very informative.
All right, thanks for having
coming
me.
down. Yeah,
thank you for doing this. It gives me something to look forward to when I'm driving to work, and I think a lot of guys appreciate what you're doing. So, thank you for what you're doing.
All right. Hopefully, you guys see Eric soon, killing everyone in the bass tournaments. All right. Take care.